I think in 2016-17, you created this crazy show called Naked. I have
Yeah.
seen it. I have opened it at one point of time, and I have seen it twice, I believe. And it was one of the craziest show.
Yeah.
कैसे बना? Audience के लिए बताओ, मुझे तो पता है.
Yeah, 2015 I created that for the Melbourne Festival. I had been invited to do it in Melbourne.
Okay, sorry. You created the show, then you were invited, or you were invited, then you created the show?
I was invited and then I created the show. Actually, it was happening simultaneously,
Sure.
but I knew I had to get it ready in time for Melbourne.
Sure.
I don't know which process happened. And I still remember मैं सुबह बैठ के चाय पी रहा था.
ठीक है.
And the last line of the show came to me.
Okay.
Right? How the show ends, which was so powerful. And then everything led to that. In fact, I think now also when I create a show, वो ending का scene पहले आता है मेरे head में. And then the whole story just built up towards that.
Wow.
And it was very different for me because for the first time in my life, I was doing serious things in it.
Yes, huh?
Right?
There was not your taste, your way of work.
There was super emotional bits, and I had people telling me, "यार तू तो comedian है, तू ऐसे तू लोगों को रुलाएगा क्या? Right? How can you do that?" And people cry. 50% of the audience is crying in this show. And I said, नहीं मैं तो यही करूँगा. And as it turned out, the serious parts were what made that show so strong.
Yes.
That's what actually made it special.
Yes.
You know. So that was an interesting experience for me. Comedy में बोलते हैं it takes you 10 years to find your voice in comedy, right? To figure out who you are, to be authentic on stage. And there's another belief I have. It's something I learned from a friend of mine called Reginald D. Hunter, very good comedian. There's a difference between a comic and a comedian.
Okay.
It's okay. It's perfectly fine to be both. A comic says funny things.
Okay.
A comedian has something to say.
Wow. It's a good line.
Right? And it's perfectly fine to be both. You can just do potty jokes if you want. Right? But you can also have something which has greater depth.
Yes.
Right? For me, Naked was the first time I was doing something which had greater depth and meaning. But also it was the first time I was doing a show that had a story.
Yes.
You know? Earlier it was just jokes. Joke, thank you, good night. Right? Here there was a story. In fact, I had to fight my natural instinct. Because my natural instinct is to do crowd work. मैं तो 40 मिनट crowd work ही कर लूँगा.
ज़्यादा कर लोगे आप तो.
Right? Exactly. But in Naked, there is a story that I'm there to tell. So I have to force myself after gassing for a bit. Please come back. कहानी खत्म करनी है मेरे को. So that was, it was life-changing for me because it changed the way I looked at life itself. I think stand-up comedy itself has been the greatest gift to me in my life in terms of the way it has made me think about life, the way it has made me relate to people. You know, it makes you become a very authentic human being. कि ये मेरी सच्चाई है, ये मैं हूँ. आपको पसंद है, ठीक है. आपको नहीं पसंद है, वो भी ठीक है. पर यही है जो है.
आपने उसके बाद इसको बुक में भी कन्वर्ट किया था. वो थॉट कैसे आया?
थॉट कोई थॉट वर्ड था नहीं. पब्लिशर आया, उन्होंने शो देखा. They said, sir, हम आपको पैसे दे देंगे, please. So one publisher came to me and said, we would like you to make this a book. So the second I got an offer, I went to all the other publishers. देखो क्या ऑफर मिला है. अरे हाँ सर, हमें भी चाहिए. तो यहाँ से the second I used to get an offer, I used to go to that. देखो क्या ऑफर दिया, ये देखो. So then they used to raise it. तो ऐसे मार पीट करके I got 5 offers. Whoever gave me the highest, I said thank you.
Wow.
कर लूँगा.
Wow.
But I had no motivation to write it. Because why would somebody write a book? या तो पैसे मिल रहे हैं, ज़्यादा पैसे मिलते हैं नहीं राइटिंग में, राइट? या कहानी है जो आप सुनाना चाहते हो. मैं तो कॉमेडियन हूँ यार, मैं स्टेज पे सुनाते हूँ.
प्लस वो जो इम्पल्सिव रिएक्शन होता है ऑन द स्पॉट वाला,
कॉमेडी यू गेट इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन,
राइट.
एंड पीपल आस्क यू नो व्हिच इज टफर. ऑब्वियसली कॉमेडी यार, राइट? किताब में क्या फायदा है, कितनी बार भी एडिट कर लो, ये कर लो, वो कर लो. कॉमेडी में इमेजिन इफ यू आर एन ऑथर, हर 4 लाइन लिखने के बाद आपका ऑडियंस आपके सामने है और या तो ताली बजाता है या बोलते हैं यार ये तो बकवास है. मर जाएगा यार राइटर वो.
सही बात है.
But what I found interesting was that the medium of print allows you the luxury of going a few layers deeper. बिकॉज कॉमेडियन को तो पंच लाइन पे जल्दी पहुंचना है ना,
राइट.
प्रिंट में वो प्रेशर नहीं होता, तो आप थोड़ा इधर उधर का सुना सकते.
थोड़ा नेकेड के बारे में बता पाओगे अगर थोड़ा बहुत आप ऑडियंस को तो बता.
So the idea behind Naked is, as human beings we build walls around ourselves,
Okay.
which hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires. We are
Right.
pretending to be strong, we are not showing कि क्या दर्द है.
हाँ.
तो in this show, one brick at a time, मैं वो layer उतार रहा हूँ, right? And I am exposing myself with all my vulnerability, all my pain. डर भी लगता है, but it's also very exhilarating. At the end of it, while you are completely naked, you are completely free. Because और कुछ नहीं है छिपाने के लिए. You are absolutely naked.
Right.
And that's very liberating. And what was magical about that show is normally people come to you after a show and say, "Arey CJ, great show, yeah." After this show, one, तो people are overwhelmed and they want to hug you.
Hug you, right.
And the other thing that happens is people are saying to themselves, and I know because they've told me, यार अगर ये आदमी, if he can go through so much pain and find a way to laugh at it, तो मेरे को क्या तकलीफ है?
Right.
मेरे लाइफ में भी जो भी दर्द है, I can handle it. So it was very cathartic for the audience as well.
Right.
The other fun bits in this, एक दो कहानियां मैं आपको सुनाता हूँ, because while I was taking off these emotional layers, I was taking off physical layers as well.
Yes.
So I would end up the show in my chaddis.
हाँ.
Chaddis means boxers, right? And at some point in the middle, I would go and give somebody a lap dance.
In the show?
In the show,
Achha,
right? I would go and give. And by the way, when I was doing this in Melbourne,
हाँ.
one day I was driving back from this salsa festival. A friend of mine is a dancer. She was dropping me back, and we were passing the road where all the strip clubs were.
Okay.
So she said, "Oh, you know, this is where the strip clubs are." I said, "Chalo, theek hai." She said, "I used to work there." I said, "What were you doing?" She said, "I was a dancer." I said, "Yaar, thode steps sikha de." I said, "I'll buy you lunch." So she came on Monday, and I bought her lunch, and she taught me the steps. So I learned how to. Can I just adjust this?
Please. हाँ.
So I learned professional stripping moves. Right?
Oh, seriously?
So anyway, I was doing this show once at this auditorium in Chennai. I think it was called Lady Andal, whatever. 1200 seat auditorium. Doing this show, and I go down to give this lady a lap dance. She must be about 55 years old, wearing traditional sari, big bindi. So I am going and doing this whole thing. My ass is in front of her, and in the middle of this, this woman takes her hand back like this, and she spanks my ass like really hard, right? And I'm thinking, चलो ठीक है यार, it's only fair. अगर मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, that's the appropriate response. Anyway, then I go back on stage, and 5 minutes later, I notice this lady has got up. And she has walked out. I am feeling violated. कि आंटी पहले तो आपने मजे ले लिए और शो खत्म नहीं हो, आप निकल गए बीच में. I was insulted. You know, it's like if you're a girl and a guy has sex with you and he doesn't cuddle you afterwards. Right? I was like, where's my cuddle? Like, ये क्या है? Then 5 minutes later, I noticed that she has come back. Normally, I would ask her, आंटी क्या हुआ, आप बीच में क्यों? But you know this, the show has got a very emotional ending. तो वो show close हो रहा था, तो मैंने show close कर दिया. Then I go to my hotel afterwards, and this lady is at the bar. So I went to her, I said, you know, what is the scene? Why did you leave? She said, you know, मैं हंस रही थी, मैं रो रही थी, my eyes were watering. She said, I spanked you so hard, my contact lenses fell out. Fuck. Was how hard do you have to spank somebody for your eyes to pop out? Shit. So she had gone to clean them to put them back in.
Oh wow. तो गाइस ऐसी छोटी छोटी क्लिप्स में पैक आपको बड़ा एंटरटेनमेंट चाहिए, सो डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू काफी वाइल्ड लाइफ शो क्लिप्स.